Good morning. I do have a centering thought, but I also have this checklist of things I think I should say before I get there. Becky thinks she has food poisoning, so that's why she's not here. Lest I forget, and eye contact with Treg reminds me, I must tell you, please turn your phones off or put them in airplane mode, if you would kindly. The other thing is, I don't have this opportunity very often, so I need to say that I don't remember, even in all the years at the old meeting house, ever leaving the sanctuary better than I was when I entered the sanctuary. And I attribute that to your presence, and I want you to know I'm grateful for that. I'm always better when I leave this room than I am when I enter it. At any rate, those of you that participate in monthly meeting know I regularly offer a centering thought that comes from the Plough's daily digs. I read them every day, and the ones that are important enough to me I save, and I share those. And so you won't be surprised, those of you won't be surprised that that's what I have again today. And I'd like us to think of this as a tribute to the folk who work hard maintaining the grounds here at Fairfield. Okay, because this is called What Gardeners Learn. The author is Norman Wurzbach. Gardening is one of the most vital practices for teaching people the art of creaturely life. With this art, people are asked to slow down and calibrate their desires to meet the needs and potential of the plants and animals under their care. Gardeners are invited to learn patience and to develop the sort of sympathy in which personal flourishing becomes tied to the flourishing of the many creatures that nurture them. A garden, we might say, is a living laboratory in which we have the chance to grow into nurturers, protectors, and celebrators of life. This, I believe, is why the first command given to the first human being was to come alongside God, the gardener, and till and keep the garden of paradise. I believe that comes from Genesis 2:15. Gardening is hard and frustrating work, but it is not a punishment. To garden well, in the skillful modes of attention, patience, sensitivity, vigilance, and responsiveness, is to participate in the way God gardens the world. Our first hymn is number 153 in the Sing Joyfully hymnal. Amanda is going to lead us in the song.
There's a sweet, sweet spirit in this place, and I know it's the spirit of the Lord. There are sweet expressions on each face, and I know they feel the presence of the Lord.
we're warmed up, can we turn the page and sing together number 154, Spirit of God descend upon my heart. And you can do count singers while we sing.
Spirit of God, descend upon my heart. Breathe from earth through all its forces through. Strength to my weakness, mighty as thou art. And make me lowly as thy heart to know. I ask to dream no prophet ecstasies, no sudden rending of the will of rage, no angel instant and no opening skies, rising of dimness of my soul away. As one big us, one big God and King, all knows, heart and strength and mind. I see thy cross there, teach my heart to bleed. Oh, let me see thy moments revive. Teach me to feel thou art always nigh. Teach me the struggles of the soul to bear, to check the rising down of sorrow. Teach me the patience of unanswered prayer. Teach me to love thee as thine angels love. One holy passion, filling all my frame. One baptism of love, and each sacred love. My heart and altar, and I love praise.
Time for announcements. We start with the Zoom folk. So does anyone on Zoom have an announcement? If not, then here in this room. Anita?
Jeff Gabbard asked me to make an announcement regarding the newly formed or forming Green Team. We're going to have our kickoff meeting on July 16th, 10 a.m. on Zoom. If anybody is interested and hasn't contacted Jeff or me, please do so, and we'll forward I think he's already sent the link to the Zoom, I think. If not, he will. But send us an email. We're in the directory, or you can ask me after meeting for the email addresses if anybody's interested. Thank you.
Randy? This is Dinah on Zoom. I forgot to say that Saturday at 6:30 at the Meeting House, we are hosting Rania and Nikki from Ramallah and Belize. They are FUM field staff, and we hope that you all can come and join us.
That's Saturday the 16th?
Yes, at 6:30 here at the Meeting House.
Okay, I had two announcements. That was one of them. Rania is actually from the Ramallah Friends School in Palestine. So this is a great opportunity to talk with two international school leaders. Both of them are directors. Belize is very small, Ramallah is very large. But they will have very interesting information to share with us. And we realize that there is a conflict with the Garden Walk group because they're also meeting Saturday evening, that we mixed up our calendars. The other thing I want just to share is, if you haven't looked at Fairfield's Facebook page recently, I shared a video yesterday that Emily Province, who some of you have met, is currently in Belgium. And she had laid out a map of Europe. And then she has three other Quaker friends sitting around her who are from different areas of Europe. And they pointed out where Quakers are in Europe. And I thought it was really interesting, so I put it on the Facebook page. If you haven't looked at it yet, it just shows you where all we are, just in Europe. It doesn't address any of the rest of the world. The Quakers are all over the world. We're just few in number, but we're all over the place.
I'd just like to remind you that tonight is the July monthly meeting for business at 7 p.m. on Zoom. Everyone is welcome to join us.
I just wanted to clarify. I know we usually do monthly meeting on the third Sunday, but is it going to be always on the second Sunday now, or they're just this month?
It's just this month.
Okay, good.
Yep.
I just want to ask for anybody that would like to pass out programs. That's a good way of seeing everybody that's here. And there's a little sign-up sheet that you can sign up out in the gathering area. And we'd love to have you sign those up. All you have to do is hand out a program and come in during the first song and count the number of people and put it on a little sheet, and that's it. Then you can come in and enjoy the service. Thank you.
It just occurred to me, I don't know how many clerks are here, but I just would remind you that there'll be an all clerks meeting this coming Tuesday evening at 7 on Zoom. And there'll be a link come out in the next couple days. I guess, is that no other announcements? Okay. We still not passing the plates for offering, but they remain back there. You can use those, or go to the site, our Fairfield website, fairfieldfriends.org, that is, has information on how you can contribute to the operations at Fairfield, and we greatly appreciate your contributions.
God, how good it is to quietly center, to listen, to learn, to share that which challenges us and that which brings us joy. Oh God, we are reminded today of the importance of hope. Of not losing sight of all the good and wondrous in our world. For we confess, O God, that if we labor and consider all of our challenges, it is too easy to grow discouraged, to believe that you are not present, to believe that virtue is scarce, and good news rare. So thank you, O God, for the reminder of goodness and steadiness and faithfulness. Thank you for those who unselfishly pour out their lives for others, who bring happiness and joy wherever they are, who even in the midst of challenges and struggles find something for which to be grateful. Oh God, may our hearts be glad. May our spirits never be extinguished. And may we have eyes always to see the beauty around us. This is our prayer this first day morning. Amen. Well then, how fitting to sing together, It Is Well With My Soul, in the blue hymnal, 453. Well, before I begin, a thank you to Mark Strudemeyer and Mike Goss and Ned Steele, bringing the message in my absence to Alaska to see our son. Oh, it's good to be back. Good to be back. And thank you also to USFW. Mary Lee Comer delivered what she called the largest care basket in the history of USFW to our home last Sunday afternoon, and I've been working my way through it all week, including the gift certificate to Danville Dips ice cream. Well, we enjoyed our trip to Alaska. It was just a wonderful time visiting our son and daughter-in-law, who are, as you know, expecting their first child. So I spent a great deal of my time there urging them to name it after me, but they held fast and decided not to. Although we anticipate more trips to Alaska, despite getting COVID while I was there. Being the deeply spiritual person I am, I decided to attend Quaker meeting in Fairbanks the Sunday we were there. Fairbanks has two Quaker meetings, an unprogrammed progressive meeting and an evangelical meeting with a neon cross, drums, and guitars. I visited the quiet one in a little meeting house set back in a pine forest on the outskirts of the city. I got there about a half hour early and went into the meeting house, and other people started coming in and setting up chairs, so I got up and helped them set the chairs up in a circle. Their tech person was gone that day, and they were having Zoom troubles. It made me feel right at home. A half dozen or so Quakers trickled in, another dozen eventually joined us via Zoom, and then Quakers from Anchorage also joined us. During COVID, Quakers in Anchorage and Quakers in Fairfield have come together to worship over Zoom. But those of us present gathered in a circle. No one spoke the entire time except Mother Nature, who always knows the right thing to say. At the rise of worship, everyone asked to share their names. They said, share your name, stand up, tell us where you're from. So we went around the circle and I introduced myself, and several people looked up at me surprised. And the woman next to me said, are you the Phil Gulley who's married to Joanne? I said, yes, I was. And she said, oh, we love Joanne. Why didn't she come with you? And then I had to explain that she's not as spiritual as I am. Boy, that was embarrassing. But I stayed afterwards to visit because, you know, it's a Quaker meeting and meeting for worship is only half of it. The other half is staying afterwards to visit with your friends. So I stayed afterwards, and a woman there, I began talking with her. And I asked her, what are you doing up here in Fairbanks? What are you doing? And she said, well, Quakers first came to Alaska in 1897 from the California yearly meeting around, 1897. They came to set up schools, which was a laudable and well-intentioned goal, to be sure. But in addition to bringing reading, writing, and arithmetic, they also brought their culture, and which eventually swallowed up the Athabascan culture of Alaska. And as you can imagine, the loss of Athabascan culture and tradition weighs heavily still on the indigenous people. So much of their language, their customs, their rituals have disappeared. So this woman I met, knowing that Quakers bore some responsibility for the loss of Athabascan culture, is doing what she can to help them rediscover and honor their history. Even though she wasn't personally responsible for the loss of Athabascan culture, not being alive in 1897, she feels some responsibility as a Quaker and is helping to heal the cultural harm those first Alaskan Quakers did, albeit unwittingly. But it made me think how often religions end up having to apologize. In recent years, Christians have had to apologize and pay restitution to the native people in Canada, whose government in 1885 got the bright idea that taking native children from their parents and putting them in religious-run schools would be good for them. And so they did from 1885 to 1998. So it lasted a long, long time. Sent to live in religious boarding schools where many of those children were raped, assaulted, and even murdered. Researchers believe as many as 6,000 children died in the schools, many of whom were buried in mass graves, their parents never notified of their death or told of their burial. The religious organizations that operated the schools, the Anglican Church of Canada, the Presbyterian Church of Canada, the United Church of Canada, the Roman Catholic Church, and the Jesuits of English Canada are now being asked to remedy the harm they caused. Apologies have been offered, though the Vatican refused to acknowledge its culpability for many years until this past April, when Pope Francis finally extended an apology. Religions always end up having to apologize. We've been talking about the differences between religion and spirituality, and the last time we were together, I said the series was over. That turned out not to be true, and I apologize. Yet another apology from a religious leader. Because while I was in Alaska, I discerned one more difference, and that is this. Often, when religions do what they think is best, they almost always end up having to apologize. Their misguided passion, their unchecked zeal often leads to the diminishment and destruction of others, usually in direct correlation to the good they think they're doing. That is, the more determined religions are to save others, the more likely they are to harm them. Eventually, their excesses come to light and apologies follow, but never soon enough to help those they've hurt. Spirituality, on the other hand, means never having to say you're sorry. Because the goal of spirituality isn't to change someone else. The goal of spirituality is to change the self, which is working up. Having dedicated itself to self-growth, true spirituality has neither the time nor the inclination to monitor others. In this sense, true spirituality is the friend of freedom, refusing to impose its values and priorities upon others. Now, we have seen this play out in our nation. and around the world. Consider today's Supreme Court, whose Catholic tenets are fast becoming secular law. The court's religious passions, their lack of respect for hard-won precedent, will lead to the diminishment of others. The best for them will mean the worst for us. Their dreams will be our nightmares. Case in point, a 10-year-old rape victim in Ohio was 6 weeks pregnant and therefore denied an abortion in her own state, so was forced to travel to Indiana for the procedure. In what world is it okay to deny a 10-year-old victim of rape the right to enjoy her childhood, and instead insist by force of law that she assume the responsibilities of parenthood? In what world is that right? That is a second abuse every bit as vile and demeaning as the initial violation. A 13-year-old victim of rape in Ohio was urged by the Ohio U.S. Representative Jean Schmidt to consider her pregnancy an opportunity. Mark my words, the zealotry of today's court will lead to such abuses that apologies will one day follow, though far too late to help those they've hurt. Religions always end up having to apologize because they inevitably take an admirable virtue and pursue it beyond all reason. Roman Catholics, evangelical Protestants declare their high regard for human life. Now, as a Quaker pacifist, I share their respect and regard for human life. But I do not let my respect for potential human life override my respect for actual human life. Neither will I let my respect for potential human life turn me into a zealot, denying women their personal freedom in order to satisfy my personal beliefs. I say these things because in this nation now these things must be said. And I say more. I say more to these thieves of liberty. If you do not believe in abortion, do not have one. If you do not support gay marriage, do not have one. If you do not believe in interracial marriage, do not have one. If you don't believe in birth control, don't use it. If you're Muslim and believe in dressing modestly, covered from head to toe, then cover yourself from head to toe. If you're a Quaker and want to live simply in a hut, feel free. If you're a Christian who believes Jesus is the only way to God, believe that all you want. But do not make your personal choices as noble and virtuous as you believe them to be incumbent upon the rest of us, lest you one day find yourself apologizing for the cruelties that too often accompany zeal. Friends, those of us who treasure religious life, who belong in spiritual communities, need to often remind ourselves that the words "you must," "you shall," and "you will" have no place among free people. No matter who we are, we have the right to be free moral agents vested with the power to live as we wish, to form families or not, to love whom we want, to follow our light as best we can and no one else's light. For there has never been, and will never be a truth made more lovely by coercion. There has never been, nor will ever be, a truth made more lovely by coercion.
I think God spoke to me today through your sermon in different ways. A big way was religion is about changing others, and spirituality is about changing yourself. But there were other things, and part of it is the choice of words, like the unchecked zeal. There were several things in there that I thought, wow, I would never think to put it that way, but that is a perfect way to put it. And I would love a copy of your sermon. I need to read it over and over.
Difficult question or challenge in my mind is if the purpose of spirituality is to endeavor to change ourselves and not to change others, what is the spiritual person's role or obligation in protecting others who have had their rights impinged upon by others? How can we stand up for those who cannot be themselves because of the actions taken by the Supreme Court and legislators and others. Without enforcing our feelings, wishes, beliefs, values on others. And should we be zealous in defending individual liberty?
I think there's a difference in doing something in love and doing something that forces your beliefs on others. And we can do it in love by doing it peacefully, voting, speaking out, but not forcing our beliefs on somebody else. We do it by caring for other people. I don't feel like what the Supreme Court has done has been to care for other people. I think they're forced their religious beliefs on others, and that has no place in the Supreme Court.
Our hearts clear? I hope so. There's an error in the program. The hymn we are singing is 119 in Sing Joyfully. It is, they'll know we are Christians by our love.
When I was 17 and began attending Quaker meeting at Danville Friends meeting, I was told by the pastor that if I wanted to become a Christian, it would be the easiest thing I had ever done. And foolishly, I believed him. What I have found instead is that the examined life of Christianity is one of the hardest things I've ever done, as demonstrated by Mike's question. How do we change this world without being part of the problem? How do we do that? What you are invited to, friends, what I am invited to, what all of us are invited to, is a life of difficulty. It is tempting to revert always to the simple answer, the settled dogma, and it is difficult, profoundly so, to have to think and rethink over and over. But in that path, I believe joy is found and meaning is given. And so this week, friends, think, and rethink, and learn and grow. That is the way of happiness. Amen. Turn and greet, friends.